was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and we barely spoke about fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or we brought a guy named Lawrence Krauss down here, and this guy's like a metaphysicist. He was speaking out at the Opera House, never been into a gym before.
Yeah.
And the conversation would just build and grow. He was actually uncomfortable. But with you, I wanted to talk. I know. I had no business even talking to him, man.
Yeah.
He has a PhD from MIT.
Oh, shit.
And what I always tell people.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what do I know about physics and atoms? He was actually part of that in 2007 in, I think it was Sweden. They redid the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
But back to you, yeah, like I've been linked up with you on social media for a few years, and you're in Australia. Have you ever been here?
No, this is the first time.
Never been here. And then when was this trip booked? Was it spur of the moment?
When was it booked?
That was about 3 months ago.
Yeah, 3
So
months.
12 weeks ago. Because I know that like you're very, there's so much to chat about with your relationship with your fighters. You used to be a former fighter. You were a ball player in college, Alabama, born and raised?
No, I'm born in Florida. Well, actually, not born in Florida. Born in Maui, Hawaii, and raised in Florida. South
Wow.
Florida.
So you played ball at Alabama State.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the timing, I mean, two of your stable, probably two of the best in the world, Poirier and Joanna both fought.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get the show started with like, do you find it hard when you have, because these are, I'm a coach as well, and you form these bonds with these athletes, and it almost gets kind of emotional as well. With both of them winning, what did that feel like? And then maybe talk about when they lose. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's funny because we did the seminar that day, and then that Sunday, all the attendees came out and actually see me watch the fights. They watched fights.
I saw it on your Instagram.
Yeah, and you could actually see my emotions at that point. Like, I usually hide it, especially if I'm at the fights. I don't like to show emotion, especially for the fighters. I want them to see how calm, and cool, collected I am, because I don't want that to deter them. So for me, being able to actually show that emotion and get out there, and usually and when I'm at home, man, like I said before, it's like I'm trying to be quiet because my son is sleeping. So I don't want to be like,
Yeah.
Can I curse on here?
Yeah, you can.
Okay,
We
fuck.
got to eat.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Perfect. 'Cause
You can curse, let them flow.
It's gonna fucking go down.
There it
Right
is,
now.
man. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
But yeah, so I let it out, and it was it's like I hate to say it sometimes, but I'm like living vicariously through them because I cannot fight no more. The good thing is coaching has given me that sense of accomplishment there, but also I get to maintain and stay in the sport that I love and work with the best fighters in the world, hands down. And it is something that I truly look forward to actually see them accomplish their goals, and we're one step closer with Dustin. We're one step closer with Joanna. We're a step closer again. So it's
With
exciting.
Dustin, man, I've been following it. So you look young. How old are you?
29.
Jesus, yeah, I'm 36. So I've been watching the UFC literally November 10th, 1993, man. From day one, I was 11, the UFC. And then Dustin, though, watching him when he was in his early 20s out of Louisiana, 145er. I don't think he's lost since the Conor fight. But it's once he bumped up, you could see a visible. I know he still reps Thug Jitsu, but you can see a visible change in his physique.
Yeah.
I think over the last few years, even with Joanna as well, when she switched camps and she left Europe and came down. Now, do you have full reins on the S&C stuff with those fighters?
Yeah,
From the programming and everything. I know you're at ATT, so they trust in you as well to just guide them. What's that like? And then talk about maybe sort of the spectrum of creativity you do, maybe from a female fighter versus a male fighter, or even what if a guy or a girl's coming off of a loss, how those adjustments show up in their programming.
Yeah, so we always do a baseline assessment before they start camp, which is going to be 10 to 9 weeks out. And then from there, I can correlate what I need to do from a physical preparation standpoint. Also take into account, how well they're trained. So how much actual experience they have in the weight room. And usually, in the case of Dustin and Joanna, they've been with me for roughly over 3 years now. So I know exactly what we need to improve upon, especially watching fights and actually seeing it, breaking it down from an aerobic standpoint and from a strength standpoint. So I correlate the program after I assess them, and then we can go from there, and then we'll auto-regulate when needed. Yeah,
it's crazy to see Joanna's body type because it's almost like she changed weight classes, but she didn't. Yeah. Even like how her, with uniforms, the fighters pick, you could see like the size of her quads, and it's almost like I'm waiting as a fan for her to grapple. You know,
Yeah.
I want to see her because
Yeah.
even against Tisha, she did show her physical strength having Tisha a couple times up against the octagon, but her frame. It's like, do you get any say so in that attack, in the plan of attack, or no? In terms of the fight.
From the tactical.
Do like the striker coaches come to you and say, "Hey Phil, what's
so
that like?"
Cattell is her striking coach primarily, and me and Mike Brown do consistently. Obviously, we're gonna talk amongst each other. That's the good thing.
You guys have a relationship as well?
Of course. That's why that's a good thing about being at American Top Team, where there's constant communication between all coaches. Whereas some strength conditioning coaches do not have that luxury because they're working on outside of the gym, somewhere else in their own gym or whatever the case may be. But the good thing there with American Top Team is I do have that lines of communication in which that will help with the progression of the fighter.
Builds trust as well, correct? For the fighter's relationship with you guys.
Yeah, we are a team. Like the American Top Team, we are a team. Sometimes I have to make sure that the skills coaches know exactly what's going on because they may think that what we're doing may not be conducive for the fight, but at the same time I know how to structure a program and I know how to actually periodize and peak the fighter at the right times.
Yeah, so pulling the trigger on that, because I know some camps are shorter than others and longer than others. With Dustin, talk about the mental preparation, because all you have to do is watch an interview with Poirier, and you could that mindset's there. He talks about that he's athletic, but he's a fighter. But in both instances, in those Alvarez fights, there were pretty heavy adversity. This last fight, though, it was almost like, all the ref, you could say it for whatever you want to say, all the ref did, got her, he stood him up, which was fine, the momentum was broken, but it was almost like Dustin was a different guy when he stood up. That's like, you train for that. There's preparation going into that. Is there anything that, with a guy like Dustin or maybe a fighter that we don't know, we haven't heard of, maybe he's not a UFC fighter, is there something that you could kind of pinpoint that he has that, maybe encapsulates why he's at the stepping stone of being a champion?
Well, for one, he does have God-given talent. You know what I'm saying? You can't make it to the level that he's at right now without that. But on top of that, his mindset, I have a shirt on that says mindset matters.
Yeah, saw that.
So he understands.
Oh, that's him?
That's his shirt, yeah.
Okay. So where could you plug it? Where can we find those ones at?
You know what? If you just go on Twitter and ask for one, he probably can send one to you.
Okay.
And then his wife, Jolie, she's on Twitter too, I think it's at Jolie Poirier. And you could probably find some shirts there.
Cool, man. Yeah. So he's aware that that's one of those gifts that he has.
Yeah, man. I think that we constantly are giving him positive affirmations, but at the end of the spectrum, like, he knows exactly how much talent he has and what his capabilities are right now. He thinks he's the best in the world, and I do believe he is the best in the world. Right now, at this point in time, he's catching his stride. He's been in the octagon plenty of times, so it's very comfortable for him. And for that, he's able to withstand any type of problem or any adversity when it comes down to the fight, and he can overcome it. And then you've seen it in this fight, and honestly, if he had a chance, he probably would have overcame it in the first fight with Eddie.
Yeah.
He just didn't have a chance to.
Yeah, there's some fighters, man, it's just there's a piece I'm reading right now about awareness and like living in the moment, and the 3 examples that they talk about as humans, that we are in that highest level of being aware are in war, in a fight, and then if we get like a death sentence. So if somebody's terminally ill, actually they have they have that timer, so they're exuding like the highest level of awareness in those states. From a fighter perspective, though, how often do you ever get frustrated with your athletes for some guys don't like coming from behind? You could see, like, I don't want to name bash because I'm a huge fan of the sport. One of my favorite strikers is Uriah Hall, and he's so talented and his physical attributes, but it just it seems like he might be one of those guys that, you get hit and then some people just don't have that in them to come back. If he's winning, he looks like a world beater.
So you're talking about fighter spirit, right?
Is that because I never fought professionally? I've come from a boxing town. When I was younger, we would spar, and as a youth boxer. But at that level, it's something else.
Yeah.
So explain what the fighter spirit.
Well, honestly, it really comes down to mentality and the way you are brought up, especially when it comes down to Dustin, in the sense of just
scrappy Louisiana trailer, right?
He's came up fighting. All he knows is fighting, and he's a true fighter at heart. Where some guys do come into sport and they were highly athletic, they played a sport before, and this is something that they were kind of forced into at the end. Where you have guys that are actually born for this shit. So for that, Dustin is one of those people. So.
Back to the emotional thing, because you know I've done about 230 plus of these, right? And some are in person, some aren't, and it never matters. It started almost as a combat fighter podcast. One of my closest friends was a kid named Kelly Pavlik, who was, you know, middleweight champ from my hometown. What was happening though, when I was interviewing like, you know, Condit, Matt Brown, I'd get so invested in them, in their career, that if they would lose, and this is just me interviewing them, if they would lose, it would bum me out the rest of the day.
Sure.
So when Alex fought her last fight and she lost, I told myself, I was like, you know what, man, I don't think I can interview fighters again. And one of the questions I want to ask you is, how do you compartmentalize those emotions? Because fighters do lose.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we've lost the biggest fight of our life, me and, you know, Joanna, with Rose twice. You know, the first time she lost, we kind of knew why, you know, with all the weight cutting issues and things like that. But that was a big hit, you know, and
how it went down.
Yeah, and the whole thing is just like, it wasn't. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Big punch, yeah. It was just one of those things that looked like she probably had eaten that punch numerous times in her career.
Yeah. Like we knew something was off physically. You know, so, but you know, from that perspective, but just to watch it all unfold like that, it was just, you know, it was unfortunate. But and also, you know, you got to make sure that we learn from that situation.
How much is she cutting?
When she fought her the first time. When she fought her the first time, she cut 15 pounds in like 4 hours.
Wow. What? Is that standard?
No, definitely not. So we obviously got rid of the old people that she was working with. Okay. She does do her own diet now, and we kind of oversee it. And then she works with George Lockhart at the end of the week or the last week of the fight. So there is a more of a strategic approach to it. Yeah. This is the reason why, you know, now we're looking at seeing a better, more easily attainable cut, and then she can be better performance through that.
Yeah, so I was researching back to you and your body of work and what you do, and you know, so many times I think we probably all have friends or know people that they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, they don't know what their path is, and to see, like, if you Google your name, I mean, you were, this actually, I didn't know this, but in 2012 you were MMA, you won an award for coaching. Yeah. And that was 6 years ago. Yeah. And it's 2018 now. You were up, because the picture in that photo, you look like you're like 18. Yeah. And you still look really young. That's probably why you grow that beard.
He's being nice right now. You look younger than me, man.
But you guys know what I'm saying. Yeah. So to see your body of work though at a young age get credit for, you know, your skills, and then I think that, you know, it's one of the things I told you when we were walking down the stairs. It's cool to see your growth. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you're still in your 20s. From a personal perspective, maybe share with us, you know, some of your goals. What you see, you know, in 5 years. What's your brand doing? What are you doing? And what's ideal for you in your mid-30s?
Well, right now I'm actually doing what I intended to do 5 years ago. So my 5-year goal from 25 is actually coming true. I'm actually, you know, traveling the world, you know, putting out content, making sure people understand my principles, and then teaching other coaches how to do this the right way.
Just in combat, when you say other coaches, you mean like how to handle fighters in their camps? Yeah,
pretty much. And you know, obviously it's going to metastasize into just overall coaching, right? I do have a mentorship program that I am coming out with, so that's going to be something big in the future, and that's something that I want to actually grow from there. We also have Fight Science Institute, me, Tony Ricci, Corey Peacock, your boy, and Chris Algieri. We're actually coming out.
Chris is a beast. Yeah. Are you part of ISSN?
No, actually, I am going to be.
Yeah, they keep talking. Dr. Jose Antonio is a beast.
Yeah, so and Jose, yeah, we're all pretty close in that close niche, and trying to bring out the best coaching. And what we can do is try to, you know, increase our level of ability as far as from a fight science perspective, and try to get new statistical data for all coaches so that they can increase their performance on all their fighters.
I learned so much through having conversations like this with guys like yourself. But like Algieri, when we sat down, and he'll always send me photos. They just had the seminar and they're drinking. I'm like, dude, don't send me those photos. I want to be there. But did you hear the evidence? They just did this study on creatine, and I had no idea. Yeah. We always knew the strength benefits, but he was talking about microdosing daily to protect the brain. Yeah. And is that the narrative now in your camps? Yeah. I find that. Could you kind of explain to us what?
Yeah. So I don't know if people know this, but I actually had to retire from MMA due to concussions. So that
Bam.
Yeah, that was me, man. And it's funny, man. Some people call me
on a win. You retired on a W.
Yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Come on, man. You know, I got to. You know what I'm saying? I love this.
I mean, and primarily most of the concussions I've have gotten over is from football in general, just taking head blows every practice.
Yep.
But we have found that out, and we utilize creatine, small microdoses, like we said, primarily pre and post sparring, and then also before a fight. So we're trying to make sure that we're maximizing that potential not to get that damage, because at the end of the day, you want to have a prolonged career and you don't want to be a vegetable.
Yeah, I was just having a chat. So I literally, I'm a strength coach at this health club we're at in Sydney. And I use my clients almost as, a buffer for, I get ideas, I get inspiration from them. And we were talking about the strength coaching, actually. And I was did you see the article Dr. Andy Galpin shared just a couple days ago about the S&C coach from, I think it's the University of Minnesota, $750K yearly, and he's like, it's only a matter of time before we'll have $1 million strength coach out there. And I told that to my client, and he kind of looked at me, he's in tech, and he obviously gave me that look like, what? Because he didn't see the value. And then I had to break it down to him. I was like, look, man, you got to realize, broken down the D1 sports, how much money comes in for a successful program. So from that perspective, do you feel that, because I look at your name, the education behind you as well. Also, I think a separation for you is that you fought before as well. Where do you visualize, that growing? Do you think that strength and conditioning is something that will trickle down in, other areas other than the popular sports? For instance, like you look at, there's a boxer out here. I'm not gonna name. I don't want to name drop. But every time I see him fight, I'm like, man, that kid needs to do deadlifts. Why is he deadlifting? And he, in his early 20s, he got away. He was fighting in lighter weight classes and winning. Won a couple little Oceanic Pacific championships. But he's just been getting bullied in all of his fights. And I think, do you see? Is it a mindset that certain athletes or certain sports have regarding S&C, strength and conditioning, lifting weights?
Yeah.
And where do you see that that's going to grow in the future?
Well, I know it's going to grow. The thing is that we have to get away from just thinking that we are strength and conditioning. Just strength and conditioning. We are stress managers, right? So on top of that, we're trying to reduce fatigue. We're trying to reduce the risk of injury. There's all these go into place, not just getting them stronger and getting them more conditioned. Right, so we have to get away from that. We're performance coaches, so we're trying to increase overall performance. When it comes down to strength in general, when two talented fighters are equally skilled, the one thing that's going to take them over the edge, the one thing that's going to give them that advantage is who is stronger at that particular time. Right, so if I have two equally technical fighters, the one that's stronger is going to be more dominant, hands down. So why not have a coach that can show them the proper way and periodize it and make sure that they're getting the right modalities and methodologies to make that happen?
Are you a DeFranco guy? Because I've seen that, because
Joe's a
beast, right?
He's a good friend of mine. Joe.
From your methodologies, though, where did you feel your foundation principles came from? Because some people, like, I know guys down here, they're huge Paul Quinn fans, and I learned a lot from Joe D. I've gone to see him a few times, and I was just wondering, from your programming, you mentioned periodization.
It's funny, man. Well, all my stuff comes from the old Soviet Union, so it really just depends on the person, and that's usually what I talk about in my seminars when it comes down to periodization and programming for a combat sport athlete. Since we're so subjective, we have to make sure that we know all the methodologies, and then we can put that in place per particular fighter for a certain situation and a circumstance. So if it works, it works. I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel, but I make sure that I correlate everything, maybe mash some things together. Maybe take something from triphasic, take something from, just Joe D stuff. Take something from,
Evan Esch, but he's also
exactly. Yeah, you can take all of that, and if it works, it works. If it fits the profile for that particular person, it's gonna be, it's gonna be beneficial.
So something I struggle with, and so say you have a fighter, they're not in a camp, and they're still, training. Some people just love the weight room, and they come to you for a program, like, what should I be doing, sort of thing. So let's role play real quick. Say I have one of my clients is a fighter, and he doesn't have a fight yet, but he's still doing like 4 to 5 days in the weight room. What are kind of some, non-negotiables in that program that you would write for him, even though he doesn't have a fight yet? Are you going compound heavy? Are you going squat heavy? Are you going less than 5? Are you going hypertrophy? Maybe talk about that.
It all depends.
It's there's a lot of factors there.
If you had a guy that, and primarily with fighters, they don't have a weightlifting background, so it's usually the first line of action is to build up work capacity. work on GPP, general physical preparedness, right? We want to get their body structurally stable to do work, right? And then also build their aerobic capacity, because at the end of the day, if we can build a solid aerobic base, it's going to take into, or it's going to go and potentiate into all the other energy demands, especially when it comes down to mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts is a mixed bioenergetic sport, so you got to make sure that we're putting all these pieces together. And once you get into camp, however, then it has to be concurrent, because you have to make sure that they're getting all of these types of energy systems worked on and efficient throughout the time that you have. There's a lot of different skill sets that you have to acquire, and the same thing goes for physical preparation.
With all of your experience with high-level fighters, does it ever become like a double-edged sword? Because, for instance, because you've seen so many factors, and maybe it's 2 or 3 weeks out of a fight, and you're looking at their numbers on certain lifts or how they're moving, you're just like, shit, they're not for some reason clicking on all cylinders. Does that happen? And if it does, is it ever too late to adjust things in the program leading up to a fight?
Not at all. We're actually constantly adjusting. We're constantly auto-regulating and making sure that we have the means to progress, even if it is backing some things down or cutting some training sessions off. At some points, you may have to actually not let them come in the gym and actually make them rest, because usually most of the time these guys are overworking themselves in general. So yeah, there is points in the camp in general that we have to auto-regulate, of course, and that's a constant, especially in combat sports.
Yeah, it's one of those things that has become, like, with how much content is out there on social media and how much people put out there and give away, it's tough to find like boxers or MMA fighters putting too much stuff of themselves working out or even hitting bags, you know, out. It's tough to find. So you're in the know. I wanted to ask you about, you know, maybe some rumor mill stuff real quick, just about Max. You know, he's one of my favorite fighters. What's the narrative right now is that I've heard some people talk about Holloway might not fight again. He had a stroke. On that perspective, a bad weight cut, do you hear anything about this? And, you know, maybe...
I mean, I know the guys that work with him, and I don't think that they would do what people said that Max did. Yeah. Especially with the water load. I know that's not their procedures. Yeah. I know that's not their protocol. So I don't know what the true I can't speak for him.
Yeah, you can't speak on it.
At the end of the day, I don't see him retiring. Yeah. Max is a phenomenal fighter. I think he has plenty of life left in him. He's young. And he's talented, so I don't know. They got to get that worked out and fixed and see what happens. But I do like to see. I want to see him, you know, fight T-City and see what we can do from there. Because, you know, I have a couple guys at 45 that can challenge for that title too.
Give us some names.
So who's fighting tomorrow? This weekend is Moicano.
He's actually fighting. Big fight.
Yeah. So we might get a title shot after, you know.
Yeah, who's Moicano fighting?
Fighting Cub Swanson.
Cub. I didn't know Moicano's one of your guys.
Yeah, ATC guy.
Yeah, and then back, you mentioned earlier about the 5-year plan when you were 25, and traveling was one of them. Yeah. What else was on that list? Because we kind of changed the subject. I'm interested in that sort of thing.
At the end of the day, man, and I tell my guys this: I want to make sure that I'm being able to inspire and educate as many fucking people as I possibly can from around the world. You know, I want to touch everybody that I know that looks out for me and wants to achieve greatness. So if I can help that person out in any way possible, I'm gonna do so. And that's primarily my goal. At the end of the day, when my funeral hits, I want every fucking body at my funeral, because I changed their life. And if I can do that, I did my job.
Yeah, I just had to go to a funeral this week, man. One of my clients, he was in his 60s. Typical, the excuse I was getting is the fact that, it's Australian, but part of the culture is like eating on the grill. Like every night this guy would eat on there and drink beers. They said drinking the piss, right? And then you look at the photos when he was, you know, in his 20s, very good looking, and then it's almost like it's kind of like a cautionary tale about, you know, our bodies change at a certain age. We have to adjust things that we talked about just like in a fight camp, but as we get older as people, what we got away with when we were younger, we might not get away with anymore the older we get. From a commercial client perspective, not a professional athlete perspective that you're used to, you talk about people wanting to, you know, achieving greatness. Where do you see, maybe it's in your family, maybe it's in your hometown, where do you see some common denominators that so many people struggle with just being well and living healthy?
Patience. I think patience is something that people do not have. They want, you know, the instant gratification. and they're not willing to consistently put in the work day in and day out. And that's in anything in life, not just working out. That's trying to be successful with anything you do. Consistent dedication and being patient in your approach. You know, enjoy the process. If you don't enjoy the process, getting there is pointless. Once you get to the end, the success doesn't mean shit. I can actually, you know, go through a whole training camp when I used to fight. And if I came through and I actually lost that fight, but I know I enjoyed the process, I learned from the process, then it's not all a loss. So you gotta understand that it isn't about the end goal, it is about the process, and just be patient in that pursuit.
Yeah, did it hit you when you were taking that, flying from Miami to LA, and then did you take LAX to here?
Yeah.
To Melbourne?
Mm-hmm.
14-hour flight. Did you tell yourself though that like, I'm flying 14 hours because I'm in a position in my career that I created that people want to learn from me? Mm-hmm. What's that feel like? And where, you know, I know it has to feel amazing watching your athletes succeed on the screen and in the octagon, but there might come a time in your career where you might not even have the time to coach these athletes because you might, who knows, you might just be touring. Yeah. And with the advent of social media, that could be a possibility. Is that something you think about? And did you ever think 5 years ago that 14-hour flight to Australia would ever happen?
Yeah.
You visualized, like, you thought that would happen.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good...
Everything I do, I manifest in my head.
Yeah.
So I make sure that when I go set out to do something, even though it may look like it's not beneficial at that point, it's to set up my future plan. So yeah, I did believe this was going to happen, and it is going to continue to happen because I'm that driven. That's
awesome. There's a Goggins has that thing, don't be motivated, be driven. Mm-hmm. I just read that yesterday. Yeah. Did you already do a seminar in Melbourne?
Yeah, I did Melbourne. It was good. Had a good turnout there, and then we're doing Sydney this weekend.
Is anyone in this room doing it with you, or is this your team?
Yeah, this is my Australian team. So Mac, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, give a shout out, man.
Come over here.
Yeah, because we got audio. This will be all audio. You know, there's people in here, man. Let's join the chat.
Sure, man. I'll grab my chair.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so you live in Melbourne?
Yeah.
In Absolute MMA?
Yeah, that's right. So Dan and I both work and train out of Absolute MMA in Melbourne CBD.
Yeah, how did you guys link up with Phil?
Wow, it's an interesting story.
Yeah, let's hear it, man.
My wife Teresa over here and I.
Teresa, she was so kind in helping me arrange this, so thank you, Teresa.
Indeed. So yeah, Teresa and I were going on our honeymoon, and we had the option to pass through Florida, and so I reached out to Phil, said, listen, man, I'd love to meet up and talk shop, maybe some kind of a consult to help me put together some plans for some of the athletes I work with, and perhaps do a podcast interview, something like that. And we ended up meeting. We hit it off really well, and we just stayed in touch. And podcast interview happened, and the next thing we knew, we were organising an Australian tour. So
that's awesome, man. How awesome is social? So many people will talk negative about social media, and I'm like, I think that's a gauge of where that individual's path is. Because if you're on a mission like Phil and yourself, myself, probably everyone in this room, for helping people, developing and learning, social media is a great tool for that, because we could send an email, and they always say you'll never get what you want if you never ask.
Sure.
So that's awesome, man. Are you in Melbourne? Are you dealing with all combat fighters? Is it all professional fighters? Because once again, I know the Black Zillions. The story I heard, they went down because the gym, I'm probably grossly misrepresenting this, but I was told that they didn't have memberships for the general population. It was only fighter based.
Well, I'll tell you what. One thing happened was American Top Team happened to them.
Yeah, same town, right?
Oh, we right next to each other?
Right next to each other. Yeah. So, but ATT, if I lived in Coconut Creek, or there's another one near there too, isn't there?
Nah.
Is it Hollywood?
No.
So it's just Coconut Creek.
We talking about the American Top Team?
Yes.
Yeah, we're all over.
Yeah, but in South Florida, is there just the one in Coconut Creek, or is there another one?
Man, there's probably like 100 gyms around the world, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's probably a couple in Florida. There's a lot in Florida, actually.
Would I be able to join the Coconut Creek one and work out if I wasn't a fighter?
Yeah.
See, that's the business
It's actually
model.
more general public than anything.
Yeah, and that's what pays the bills.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess Black Zillions didn't do that.
No.
And I guess you learn from your experience. Does your gym, if people, because the show's downloaded in 49 out of 50. Come on, Alaska. Alaska's the only state yet that hasn't downloaded the show. It's 68 countries, but we have
Alaska.
Yeah, I know.
You know I love you. Come on, man.
Yeah, right.
Let's go.
It's the only state. and I've been unwilling. I talked to a famous American motivational speaker, and he's my age, and he built his whole brand without putting one dime into paying for it. So I've been hesitant. I was like, I could easily put like $10, Target Alaska, but I won't do it. How funny would that be? And then like I think 68 countries. But a lot of our people listen are from Melbourne. So maybe talk about do you have a gym there?
Sure.
Yeah, maybe plug that in. Where could it, I have an old client, Guy Bourne, probably tuning in. He lives in Melbourne now. Where could they find that?
All right, Absolute MMA. We got 3 gyms in Melbourne, in inner Melbourne. So Melbourne CBD. There's one in Collingwood, and there's one in St Kilda. In my opinion, it's the best MMA school in Australia. So,
any up and coming fighters?
Well, Dan will be able to talk more about that, but we do have one named Lucas Marcus.
Okay, because I know Jake Matthews is out of Melbourne. I don't know what gym he's at. And you had the Judoku Dan out of there. And there's a lot of MMA going down in Australia, New Zealand.
Well, now you see you've got Jimmy Crute as
I
well.
saw he just won
which
on...
is the Contender Series, man.
Is that from you guys?
He kicked that dude's ass. No, he doesn't train at Absolute. He comes from rural Victoria, a town called Bendigo. And,
Okay.
He does a lot of work with Dan Kelly, the judoka.
Yep.
And so, there's just a lot happening in the MMA scene in Melbourne right now, and it's pretty exciting to be part of it. But as I say, like I work with a lot of amateur fighters, whereas Dan over here works with the majority of the pro fighters that come out of Absolute. So together we kind of, we complement each other's skill sets really well. And now we've got the opportunity to work with Phil, putting stuff together, presenting stuff on the weekend at the Daru Strong Performance Seminar Tour at Lift Performance Center. So it's going to
Shout
be
out to Cato Rutherford. That's my boy, man. He used to train here.
Yeah.
He was a coach here, and then he opened Lift. Have you been to Lift yet?
No, not yet.
It's one of those spaces where it's so efficient. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so efficient with the space.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, it's not the biggest space.
No, it's not.
So. But I mean, I'm working at this is a health club catering to commercial corporates. If you guys noticed when you walked in, you had the 2 multinational banks there, and we're actually this is an old bomb shelter, by the way.
Oh wow!
This was built underground in the 1950s as a bomb shelter.
We're good to go, man.
Yeah, man, we are good to go. So when I had
the fucking show will go on.
Yeah, right, and that's my boy's painting. And then, like I said, I like cropping stuff up. And networking, though, back to the social media thing and how you guys, so you linked up because of a message reaching out. Maybe talk about firsthand, maybe something you've learned from Phil just in the short time you've known him, and something you're learning on this current trip to Australia.
All right, man, there's a lot of things. I think predominantly it's the way, first and foremost, the psychology, the art of coaching that Phil bangs on about a lot.
The art of coaching, I love that.
Art of coaching, yeah. I mean, it's not just the science of things. I mean, you're dealing with human beings, and so you've got to know that fighter, you've got to know that individual really well. So that's one of the big things I think you can see in the way Phil deals with, especially Dustin. Like those guys are tight.
Yeah, it's a good relationship.
It really is, and so like that's inspiring for me to really get inside the head of the athlete, and I mean, which is. It's not hard to do, but I mean, coming from a different perspective at that level is very, very inspiring. So that's one thing I've learned from Phil.
Yeah, I mean, as far as being here in general, I'm seeing the true passion that these coaches have for the sport and have for the people that they work with. With Mac, I seen watching him actually train his fighters the right way, and I see a lot of dumb shit out there, and it's good. It's refreshing to see good coaches doing what they're supposed to do to help their athletes.
No single leg dumbbell curls on Bosu balls, or writing articles about single stabilizer muscle when it's a function, things like that. You mean?
Yeah, pretty much, man. And the same thing goes for Dan, man. And Dan's an ex-fighter and ex-Marine, man. So he's a badass.
Australian or American?
UK.
Oh, UK. Wow, we got a good representation in the room.
Yeah.
You mentioned the art of coaching. Is that something that because another South Florida, well, he's a Jersey guy, lives in South Florida, Elliot Hulse, he sent me this book, and he says, one of my favorite quotes right now, because I love coaching. I played American football, baseball, basketball. But once sport broke my heart, I always tell people, once I got to that level, I was 22 and playing baseball out west, and you get to that level where you used to be the best, and then you're good, and then you're good and you're average, and now everyone's better than you. It's like, I turned my back on sports for a long time. And my mother was always there telling me that you should coach. And, I didn't start coaching until I was 31. but Elliot says coaches are kings.
Yeah.
Coaches do as kings do.
Yeah.
And man, I love that quote. It really spoke to me.
Yeah.
And the art of coaching is that, maybe explain to us in your own words, what is the art of coaching?
Is having a true bond and understanding for the athlete and understanding how they need to be successful. Getting on another level with them as far as, not just giving them sets and reps, asking them questions, getting a part of their life, understanding what they go through, and then you can actually correlate what you need to do to make them successful, and so they can buy trust in you, and then from there, everybody can progress.
Yeah, everyone's eating, man.
Yep.
That's. You ever see? What was it New Jack City? Maybe it was Medicine. Everyone's eating, man. No.
Yeah.
Well, that's the belly. No, I'm just trying to eat.
I get you, and that's why I bring my team here.
Yeah, I was impressed, man.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I get living in Sydney and being an American. When I send that email out, now I was informal with you because we're friends on Facebook, but I did send you the email so you could see it. When Americans see Sydney, Australia. No matter like I said, we've had astrophysicists in here, fighters, strength coaches, but I think the common denominator is that willingness to share knowledge and then also learn. But where was I going with that? We were talking about kind of rambling and ranting. I know the time is limited. I did want you though, because I'm putting your links in the show notes and I talked about it in the intro.
Yeah.
Maybe if I left anything out, you mentioned these courses you have. I have your website in the intro. Maybe, and then if you have any dates left in Australia and Sydney, I can put this up tonight.
We'll go ahead and tell them about the Sydney.
Yeah,
sure. Right now, actually.
Saturday, 4th of August, Sunday, 5th of August at Lift Performance Centre in Redfern here in Sydney. That'll go from 9 till 5 both days. Tickets are $850 for the entire weekend. That'll include 2 days of workshops, lectures, and actual practical demonstrations, and Q&A as well. But
is it just you?
Yeah. Well, actually, they're gonna go ahead and jump in and do some things.
Okay.
That we've been working on, but yeah, I'm gonna be presenting.
Okay. Yeah, but I remember what I was thinking. When you guys walked in with all the same shirts, I was like, man, I've seen people come in with just one person. I didn't know what I was looking for. I knew what you looked like, and I saw the black hoodies. Like, oh man, he got a little army. It was cool to see though.
She's the toughest one.
Yeah, Teresa. Yeah, shout out, man. I appreciate it. But so we got Saturday and Sunday, August 4th and 5th in Sydney, Australia. Like I said, I'll tag a bunch of people in it, man. This gym alone has 35 coaches.
You can find the event on Facebook. Just search for Daru Strong Sydney, and that will take you to the event page, and you can buy tickets through there. Or you can go to The Unknown Strength on Facebook. That's my business.
I'll put that in the links as well.
And same in Instagram at Unknown Strength.
Yep.
You click the link in the bio, it'll take you straight to the event page.
Yeah, I'll put them both in there. And then, do you have those courses out yet online? I know you're working on an online platform.
It's coming. It's coming. I mean, if you also want to, invest in a program, I just did a program with Chris Barnard, Overtime Athletes, same guy with Strength Camp. That's out there. I'll give you the link for that. And then also have a Fight Strong, which is a 6-month program that's out. It's basically bringing you in as a general physical preparedness, but also strength training throughout 6 months. So it's actually going to get you stronger. It's more for general public, but we'll also want to train like a fighter.
Looking forward to that, man. You send me those links, Teresa. You can email me when we leave now the links that Matt was talking about for the upcoming weekend, and then how to get in contact with everyone here. Sure. But guys, man, time is fleeting, and that was fun. I appreciate you guys sharing space with me here on the show, and I'm glad you took part as well.
Thanks,
but,
man.
Appreciate you, man. That was fun. Thank you.
Good stuff, man.
And thanks, Teresa, too. And like I always, what I'll do is just add the outro at the very end.
Cool.
But yeah, that was fun, man.
Good,
so you got Friday not to do. You're just chilling up today and tomorrow?
No, I got some consoles. I got another podcast.
And we're throwing axes tomorrow night.
Axe throwing too. Yeah.
Where are you throwing?